Hello, everybody. It's Kxo Radio AM 1230, and we're excited to be here with Mickey Dale bringing you our high school football recap and our CIF playoff preview. And Mickey Dale, voice of the Imperial Tigers, take it away.
All right, Kurt, last week we talked about that the final week of the regular season would be the Imperial Valley version of the college football rivalry week, and that's exactly what we had. 4 rivalry games were on tap, a couple of them in league play, and we'll tell you about those in just a moment. The Imperial Tigers, though, we were at that game, George Grijalva and I, and they would finish up the regular season with a convincing 58-0 shutout win over the Southwest Eagles in the 15th annual Johnny Romero Fireman's Helmet Game. This would give the Tigers an overall record of 9-1 and finish second in the IVL with a 3-1 mark. The Eagles wind up the season with a record of 0-10. The Tigers offense ran just 17 offensive plays in the game, but made the most of them, scoring touchdowns on 8 of them. Head coach David Shaw called 9 rushing plays, and the squad would gain 216 yards, a staggering 24 yards per carry. Junior Rashad Robinson handled the ball just 3 times in the game, scoring on each carry for a total of 109 yards. His 4th game exceeding 100 yards rushing in a contest. His scoring runs were from 45, 26, and 38 yards in the game. Junior Jarrell Washington Walker scored on runs of 29 and 17 yards in the third quarter. It was his first touchdowns of the season. He would gain 72 yards on just 4 touches. Freshman Darren Wesso carried the ball just 1 time in the game, but he carried it for 20 yards, and that run would put him over the 1,000-yard mark for the season. So congratulations to him. Senior quarterback Jaden Ayala completed all 5 of his passes for 81 yards and 3 touchdowns to junior Gio Robles and a pair of freshmen, Anthony Hellam Jr. and to Wesso. And freshman backup Santonio Urania hit on 2 of 3 passes for 19 yards and ran once for 15 yards. He's also the place-kicking holder to set up Jonathan Cruz, and the junior kicker nailed all 8 of his PATs in the ballgame. The Tigers also recorded a safety when a snap sailed over Southwest punter Cesar Portugal, who actually did a pretty good job of covering it, thereby keeping another touchdown away from the tenacious Tiger defense. Imperial linebacker Darian Romo led the defense with 3 solo tackles and was in on 8 stops total. And freshman Trey Reese would pick off a pair of Eagle passes to stop potential drives. The Tigers finish up 9-1 on the season, 3-1 in IVL play. We'll tell you in a moment where they will be on Friday night in the playoffs. Meanwhile, in the other Imperial Valley League game, it was the 81st Bell game. The Brawley Wildcats would go on to post a decisive 54-0 victory over Central at Warren Field and wrestling the Imperial Valley League title from the Spartans, posting a 4-0 league record. The last IVL championship for the Cats was in 2021. Senior quarterback Matthew Gutierrez led the charge. He completed 16 of 20 passes in the ballgame for 265 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also started the scoring on a quarterback keeper. Sergio Garcia caught 6 of his passes for 150 yards and 2 scores, while Roy Rosas and Matthew Moreno also had touchdown receptions. Moreno and backup quarterback Noah Castro also had scoring runs for the Wildcats, and another sophomore, Kevin Valenzuela, would take a fumbled recovery, 20 yards, for the 8th touchdown of the night for Brawley. Now, despite a 9-1 overall record and the league championship for the Wildcats, they got seeded 10th in Division I and will be on the road Friday facing that is 10th seeded Rancho Bernardo. Now, the Broncos are coached by former San Diego Chargers defensive back Eric Weddle, and they're 8-2 overall. They finished second to top-seeded San Marcos in the Palomar League. And even with the loss, the 7-3 Spartans earned the top seed in Division III, and they will have Friday night off. They'll host the winner of this week's Patrick Henry Otay Ranch game on November 15th, and that game will be played at Cal Jones Field. Moving over to the Desert League, the Holtville Vikings closed out the regular season with a perfect 10-0 record by defeating Calipatria 42-18 in the annual Axe game to win their 2nd consecutive Desert League championship. That game was played last Thursday. It was the Vikings' 17th straight win when you date back to last year when they finished the season with the Division V AA title in a victory over Army-Navy. The Vikings, under eighth-year head coach Jason Turner, are 19-2 in the past 2 seasons. They are rolling. Alonzo Cuevas threw for 170 yards and tossed scoring aerials to Raul Briseño, Enrique Armas, and Braden Terrell. All 4 of those players are juniors, by the way. Armas would rush for 106 yards, and he scored 2 rushing touchdowns, and Hector Sanchez would get the other score. Jordan Potter led the 7-2 Hornets with 67 yards rushing, and he scored all 3 touchdowns for Calipatria. Both those teams will be sitting out opening weekend of the CIF playoffs. The Vikings earned the 2nd seed in Division III and will return in action on November 15th at Burger Field in Holtville when they host the winner of this Friday's La Jolla Country Day St. Augustine battle. Calipatria is seeded number 1 in Division 5 AA, and they'll wait a week before hosting the winner of Friday's Maranatha Christian and Victory Christian game. And the other rivalry game on the week, it was a non-league tilt, but it's always important. It's the Battle of the Border, and it was the Calexico Bulldogs shutting out Vincent Memorial 14-0 in that battle in Calexico at Ward Field. Junior running back Andre Lopez continues to rush with authority late in the season, led the Bulldogs with 115 yards. It's the 3rd straight game that he's rushed for over 100 yards in a game. He scored both touchdowns in the contest and has 413 yards on the ground, posting 5 touchdowns and averaging almost 8 yards per carry in just the last 3 games. He's done outstanding there. Carlos Delgado had an interception and a Ralph Silva fumble recovery to lead the Bulldog defense. Now, Calexico, they finished the regular season 6-4, earned the number 9 seed in Division 4 in the CIF playoffs. They'll be on the road Friday against number 8 Montgomery in San Diego. The Aztecs finished up 7-3 on the season and won the South Bay League. And Vincent Memorial also wound up 6-4 on the regular season. They're seeded number 12 in Division 4 and will travel to San Diego to beat number 5 Westview, the Division 4 number 5 seed. The Wolverines ended up 3-7 on the regular season and finished 5th in the Valley League. They earned a higher seeding by 1 position, and they'll get the home game. Meanwhile, as you know, Kurt, it's CIF playoff time. Imperial Tigers will be heading to San Diego, to El Cajon in San Diego County, as the 9th-seeded Imperial Tigers will be on the road, and they'll meet number 8 Christian High School at Granite Hills High in El Cajon, as Imperial was moved up to Division II in the first year of ratings based on the CalPreps computer system of records, strength of schedule, and other factors. And this will be the 5th meeting between the schools since 2004, with the Patriots holding a 1-2-1 overall edge. The last time the schools played in El Cajon, and it was at Granite Hills High School at that time, it was in 2015. The Patriots outscored the Tigers 52-24, despite a 183-yard rushing performance by Brandon Wessel, whose younger brother Darren has rolled up over 1,000 yards rushing for the current Tiger team. This will be the first time the schools have met in the playoffs in over 2 decades. The Patriots are under 3rd-year coach Patrick Bugg. They're 8-2 overall. They won the City League over San Diego High, Patrick Henry, Crawford, and Morse. The Patriots are returning to postseason action after missing last year, while the Tigers were in the playoffs for the 7th consecutive season. Christian High split their opening 4 games. They were 2-2 after 4 games before turning to Caleb Runkle at quarterback, and they won the last 6 in a row. The sophomore quarterback has hit on nearly 80% of his passes, and it's been for over 1,000 yards with 16 touchdowns and just 1 interception. So we ask you to join George Grijalva and I on Friday night on KXO Radio, 12:30 a.m. on the KXO YouTube channel on KXORadio.com, as we'll be bringing you the action of the Tigers back in the playoffs once again in El Cajon against Christian High School of El Cajon. So it's a few games on tap this week and a bunch more on next week, and hopefully we'll be able to fill out the complete schedule next week with some victories on Friday night by our local teams heading to San Diego County.
No, absolutely. And Mickey, our YouTube games, there's a live chat going on, and a question I was asked early, everybody was excited about the Axe game as they were listening to Carol or they were listening to you broadcast your game. And then they all of a sudden became interested, wanting to know when Central was going to play Holtville. And I kept telling them that they were in different divisions, that they were not going to play each other. And lo and behold, Holtville and Central are in the same bracket, seeded 1 and seeded 2.
Right. They could face each other theoretically. If they both win out, they could meet each other for the championship game. So that would certainly be interesting to see Holtville against El Centro for Central High. And I'll have to look back to see the last time those two teams played in football. It's been a while.
It has been a while, and it kudos to everybody, all the teams, whether they made the playoffs or not. Southwest throughout the year with a very, very young team. The athletes there did their best. They never quit. They
Right.
played hard, and they were disciplined. So kudos to them and kudos to everybody. It's nice to see these teams playing in brackets above their being bumped up in brackets. That's a
Right, that's exactly right. And we pointed that out last week when we watched Southwest that they had not won a game this season, but you never saw quit in those kids. And so I tip my cap to them. They had a tough season, not being able to get a victory, but for them to gut it out for the season and continue playing hard all the way through, and a great fan base. There were a lot of people in the grandstands at the game at Southwest last week. So even though they didn't pick up a win, the kids continued to play hard and they were cheered by their fans.
Well, and I have to believe a lot of those fans came to hear George Grijalva, but that's just me.
We tried to open the window so everybody could hear, but we weren't able to do that. We're not successful in that one.
All right, Mickey, thanks for this week's updates. Good luck to all the teams, and we look forward to doing this again next week.
You bet. We'll talk to you Friday night.